Hello there. Welcome to whatever we're calling this show. Welcome to SiDEQUEST episode 7, I think now? I lost count. 7. So, the three of us are back here now, and as we alluded to at the end of last episode, today's topic is the ancient civilizations of the galaxy. So, you were, unless I'm mistaken, yeah, you're quite familiar with the Gree, Rakata, and whatever, but you weren't aware of the Qua? Was that am I recalling correctly?
Yes.
Right. So, the Qua were a civilization from Dathomir, actually, long before any humans reached there, the Night Sisters and whatever, although the Dawn of the Jedi comics kind of caused some muddying of that lore, but we can get to that some other time. They were the kind of reptilian. They kind of looked similar to the Nogri from the Thrawn trilogy, you know, like Rook and those. But they were similarly to the Gree. They traveled across the stars and had They actually had totally not Stargates, Infinity Gates, so they encountered many civilizations like the Iktachi, I believe, Sycetin's species, and they were actually the ones who encountered the Rakata first ever, and actually uplifted them from a pre-spaceflight civilization, which ended poorly, if you at all know what their deal is.
So, there's an interesting note here. It says, Qui-Gon Jinn says, the ability to defy oblivion can be achieved, but only for oneself. It was accomplished by a shaman of the wills. It is a state acquired through compassion, not greed. And so it appears that the wills were shaman.
Oh, you're bringing up. Oh, okay. That kind of came
was
out
that
of
after?
Yes, no.
Was that after the Rakata or before?
No. The wills are something of. Not sorry. Now I understand because you mentioned the wills, WHILLS, are a subject of much speculation since the 70s. I mean, literally the first draft of what came to be known as Star Wars was from the Journal of the Wills, Saga 1, The Star Wars, The Adventures of Luke Starkiller. So, yes, quite a mouthful, but, got that lore saga thing. But anyway, it has never been elaborated upon what exactly the wills are. So, all we know is that they have recorded things throughout galactic history, and, people are like, oh, are they Force priestesses from the TCW? At one point, I think in the 80s, most people speculated, oh, is that the true identity of Yoda's species? Still unnamed to this day. But George Lucas went out of his way to say, no, that's not it. And even in the new canon, in Rogue One, there were the Guardians of the Wills, which were that Force organization on Jedha. Now, Now, from George himself, his statements have, as they are with many, many things, have been quite self-contradictory. At one point, he described them as microbiotic beings. Basically, like he seemed to conflate them as one and the same with the midichlorians. So, like connected to the Force in that sense. Other times...
Well, why can't... Yeah. Sorry.
You good?
No, I was just saying, like, why can't they be? Like, Yoda and Qui-Gon and Anakin can, like, make themselves appear through the Force. Like, they can bring, like, a body back from the Force in some kind of, like, spectral state. So why wouldn't the wills also be... I mean, think about the will, like the will of the Force, that kind of... And hold on. And I guarantee that while he may have gone back, that George centered on the idea that they use in the Clone Wars because him and what's his name? Guy who directed the Clone Wars, help me out here. Yes. I think that they were working very heavily back and forth. So I'm like, there's got to be like George was like, like how do we actually? And then like the entire idea of a Force presence, something that can like be made metaphysical. Is that what it's called? I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're fine. No, there's
possible.
Yeah, there. When it comes to this sort of esoteric metaphysical stuff, who's to say there isn't more than one answer?
Dude, you don't think that's illogical? I mean, not only from an artistic standpoint of like, okay, so now we have we can assume. I mean, I'm not going to write the guy and ask him like, hey, by the way, did you and Pepper? I don't think that happened, but surely there's got to be some kind of like that's, I don't know, that representation in that Clone Wars episode, right? No, and then like you don't.
They never say. They never say anything about the will, but like people have. That's just been speculation because of their nature as these Force entities.
Oh,
I'm just saying that's one of many theories about what they are.
So really, we don't have, in your opinion, and this is we're asking the experts here. In your opinion, we don't really have a tied down, concrete version of what they are or what they, what purpose they play entirely, other than being, kind of like the Fates. Sorry. Sorry.
Well, there is, the in Legends, in certain, I believe it was in the novelization of Revenge of the Sith. That it's been a while since I read that. James Luceno is a god tier author. Wait, was that him? Anyway, they're described as. Wait, you know what? Let me look this. Yes, when Yoda is planting the seeds of Obi-Wan's training to ascend as a Force ghost and whatever, he said, "A secret of the ancient order of the Wills he studied," talking about Qui-Gon. So yes, as Theogek mentioned earlier, there was a specific order of the Wills, but was that the Wills themselves or something devoted to them, or I don't
see the devotion.
So that's the Legends explanation. In also, and it's more or less the same in canon, but there's the Wikipedia article itself says the Wills were a community of beings who notably wrote the Journal of the Wills, a document that recorded important events of the galaxy, as well as philosophical reflections in verse. There were shamans among them, one of whom taught the Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn that the ability to retain one's consciousness after death required absolute selflessness. So, basically, Buddha.
So basically, a scriptural camp of
or rather, ascended wills could be Buddhas. The wills as a whole would be like bodhisattvas. I suppose, is the
Oh, geez.
my
My
knowledge
knowledge of the
of
yeah.
Buddhism is limited, but to my understanding, it's yes, beings on the path to enlightenment.
Still
So
enlightened, but sorry.
help me out here because I'm floundering.
Sure.
There's the comic which we've talked about several times now, the Knights of the Old Republic, and I think it goes on for 39 issues, and it has Zane Carrick and and other characters in it. At the beginning of that, it talks about the essence of the Sith and the Jedi as being, and it's not Jedi. I think it's Jedi, or it's a completely different. It's the same, similar spelling, but different.
You are confusing
We're
two
based
very
on
different things. KOTOR has nothing to do with that. You are confusing with Dawn of the Jedi, where the
okay,
so yes the yes, Jedi was spelled JE apostrophe DAII, Jedi, from
right.
a Bendu word. From so yes, they yes at that same time period we were discussing at the beginning with the Rakata, Quan, whatever. That was the foundation of the Jedi. They came, yes, from the planet Tython. Any SWTOR player probably already knows that. Yes, they were brought there by a bunch of mysterious pyramidal ships with this weird force presence. Went around the galaxy to different planets, gathering force sensitives who went there, who chose to go in, and they created this community on that planet. Yeah, nobody knows where the Thoyor came from. Nobody knows what the deal was there. But yeah, so they had a very interesting, kind of different view of of how the Force was, because as opposed to the modern, well, I say modern, long time ago, guys, Jedi perception of balance in the Force being just the light, they viewed it kind of more like equal light and dark, which is kind of goes against George Lucas's statements on the actual meaning of balance, which is, it's weird because calling it balance is a little misleading, because it led to a lot of people assuming it's like, wait, so that would just mean equal light and dark, right? Like when you use that word, you assume of like people like, oh, did Anakin fulfill the prophecy at the end of Revenge of the Sith, 2 Jedi, 2 Sith, even though that's not the case in either Legends or canon, but he has in interviews said, no, that's not the interpretation you should have, which is a weird miscommunication, I suppose, from script to from ideas to script to screen. Filmmaking is a complicated process, but that is a whole other topic of what exactly balance in the Force entails, what exactly that whole shebang is. But in the case of the Jedi, I'm just gonna the slightly pronounced differently. I think it's meant to be pronounced basically the same way, just linguistically involved. But so the Tython had 2 moons, Ashla and Bogan, which they corresponded as like manifestations of the light and dark. So they actually, they felt this balance, a lack of balance in one of their members, they would be sent to the opposite, the opposing moon meditate and rebalance. So a dark sider, would be sent to Ashla, to a light side, a light sider to Bogan, which is weird because I think in the Dawn of the Jedi comics, when like what's meant to be like the originate, I forget his name, the like originator of the first schism among them, would he was sent to Bogan, so I need to reread because I forget the context. And it was there that he met another Darksider, and they had a whole shebang. Eventually ended up with the Rakata coming to invade the Tython system. So, fun time for everyone.
That's a rough way to say it.
Yes. The
Rick and Morty there.
Rick and Morty, in and out, 5-minute adventure. But besides that, the Dawn of the Jedi comics had some cool, interesting aesthetic choices as well. Like, I believe there were no blasters yet, so yeah, no, everything was with slug throwers, aka what we call guns. There were the very, very early antecessors of lightsabers, which were just called force sabers, from the Rakata. The first one, you see, the Force Hound Zesh. Yes, the one of the main characters, a complete edgelord, but he's cool. That comic also basically confirmed that the Arabesh alphabet comes from the Rakata, believe it or not. So something a lot of people don't think about is the Galactic Republic is actually more or less a successor state to the Rakatan Infinite Empire, because it came from, the slave species that rose up against their oppressors and established their government alongside, the Jedi, and yeah.
I have a question then. Okay, so then when did their empire form? Because I want to kind of pinpoint between humanity's emergence on what was then called, whatever Coruscant was called. What was that planet called? Help me out. There we go. All right, so
when the Infinite Empire was formed, they lasted for like 11,000 years.
When did they take over the scene though? Like when? What year?
The Republic was formed 25,000 BBY. The Infinite Empire, right, looking on Wikipedia, developed 25,200. So there was 200 years between them, but that was when they. But again, as to when
did humans come onto the scene?
The deal with the shell, that was like something ridiculous, like 200,000 BBY, which is like, that's kind of whack, because 200,000, like a civilized 200,000 years ago here on Earth, we I don't think we had even achieved behavioral modernity. Like like our brains had not yet did not have the same cognitive capacities as modern humans. So I don't think there was civilization as a whole wasn't even a blink, like a twinkle in humanity's eye, and yet that's how, maybe some people might say, oh, that's a problem with the setting, that makes no sense. There are ways to make sense of. My favorite thing in fan bases is making sense of seemingly nonsensical things. But
What happened 200,000 years ago? Did you pin something to 200,000 years ago within the Star Wars timeline?
Oh yeah, no, that was the war between the Gel and the Tong, the on Notron, the when the early humans appeared in Star Wars.
So humans were around a lot longer than the Infinite Empire was in control, or
Yes,
yeah.
but not as, but not necessarily as spacefaring entities. But
Were we not? Didn't they leave like immediately? So wait, were they stuck on Coruscant for a really long time? But then wouldn't the Gel have left, or did they kind of like? Did they kind of
or
make
they
peace?
only had very basic space, like very not much more advanced than us, because we do know that lore-wise, at one point in time, FTL travel was super, super limited. Like, kind of like Halo universe, you need months, if not years, spent in cryosleep to get even between relatively close systems or whatever. But
wasn't the Hadrian Way like created by the humans? Like, weren't they like the first? Like, it's kind of like the Vikings. Like, they were the first like guys to kind of like
what created by
branch
humans?
out. The Hadrian Way, Hadrian Way. Is that what?
That's way later. That's way later.
Yeah. I know. Okay, studying somewhere, I remember reading. This is just my little educational, like back when I was in elementary school. I remember reading something about how like Mandalorians like leaving Coruscant, like they established these trade routes as they went from Coruscant to basically Mandalore, and that's how you got to like the actual system of Mandalore.
Yes,
And that's when...
yes. The
So who left
Tong.
first? Was it the Tong or the Shell after the war? Who left first? The Tong. I mean, it's safe to assume that
first.
So they established Mandalore. It wasn't the Gel. The humans were stuck.
They only reached Mandalore in 7,000 VBY. They were nomads for a long time.
The Tong were. They were just like kind of stuck out there with this like little group of like so I see why the
I guess kind of like the Quarians in Mass Effect, but regardless, we have already gone quite over time, but I think we know what we're talking about next time. All right, Vode. Well, as the Mandalorians say, Vorentier, Retur chez mi. See you next time.